I usually like to start my analysis with a question. This time, I'm going to let Crowley ask it for me.
What's the point of it all? Heaven, hell, demons, angels...
The theme I'd like to explore today is pretty simple, but also pretty complicated, like so many things. Everyone who's read or watched Good Omens will recognize it. I'm not cracking open a new concept here, but what I am going to try and do is see if we can take this theme and explore it to its narratively logical conclusion while looking for parallels in the story.
I wouldn't tell you, we're on opposite sides!
There's no shortage of couples in Good Omens. Through both seasons, each couple brings a totally different dynamic, but they all have something in common. The witch and the witchfinder, Sergeant Shadwell and the intimate care and relaxation professional, Nina and Maggie, Elspeth and Wee Morag, the Grand Duke of Hell and the Supreme Archangel of Heaven, and of course the ineffable husbands. They are all opposites, often even what you might call opposite sides. There are many themes in Good Omens, but if I had to identify the main theme, the one that connects all the characters, all the plots and subplots through both seasons, it would be this. We are all more powerful when we abandon the notion of sides and work together. In Season 1, Adam and his friends are, of course, central to the happy outcome, but would they have succeeded without the ensemble cast of characters, each a balance to the other? The witch and the witchfinder work together to stall Armageddon just long enough for Adam to do what he needs to do. Madame Tracy, who seems quite oddly unperturbed by being possessed, gets Aziraphale to the base where he is needed to nudge Crowley to perform the miracle that gives Adam the moment and the advice he needs to figure out what to do. Humans, supernatural entities, old and young, they put all differences aside and work together to achieve a common goal, saving the world. The world was not saved by hunting the witch, by persecuting the prostitute, or by damning the demon. This specific threat, Adam, the Antichrist, was nullified, but another future apocalypse still looms. They've averted it once, but heaven and hell still want their war.
We can go off together.
Go off together?
From the time of Job onward, Crowley has been trying to get Aziraphale to step away from heaven and join him on their own side. He is, as we all should be when sharing our ideas and trying to change minds, usually quite patient. He lets Aziraphale make the discoveries himself. I love this detail of Crowley's personality. He's never lecturing Aziraphale. He just points something out, makes an observation, or asks a question, and lets Aziraphale go through the mental process and arrive at his own conclusions. This is actually an important aspect to learning in the real world. We tend to accept new facts easier when we believe we've discovered them ourselves. Not to harp on this, it's really just my opinion, but this is why I personally think Crowley let the goats bleat, but let Aziraphale uncover them. It's right in line with how he tends to show Aziraphale a hint of truth, but lets him get the rest of the way on his own. He's always the gardener planting seeds. It's why he takes Aziraphale to the surgeon and lets the surgeon do the talking. In Job's basement, he asks him,
Really? Same God that wants me to whack the kids.
There's never an accusation. It's always framed so that Aziraphale has to ask the question and answer it himself. And in exchange for all of his patience, Crowley is rewarded with what is to him the most important thing in all of heaven, hell, and earth, time spent with Aziraphale. When Crowley and Aziraphale work together, they have more power than the sum of their parts. This is pretty clear, to me at least, with the joint miracle they perform in the first episode of Season 2. Even Crowley recognizes it, though he's not really thought it through.
Yeah, we did a thing, hiding miracle. Apparently if we do a miracle together, it all works a bit too well.
Certainly, it's also love, but that's just one kind of working together, isn't it? At the end of Season 2, we finally get the reveal that Gabriel and Beelzebub are in love. They have each decided that they've found something more important to them than choosing opposite sides. They're on their own side now. They decide to leave behind everything else and just be them. And as beautiful and romantic as this is, they have still chosen a side, their own. This is exactly what Crowley is always asking Aziraphale to do. He's not asking him to abandon the entire idea or concept of sides, but just to choose a different one, their own. Some people watch Season 2 and say that there was no world-ending threat as there was in Season 1, and although it's true that our ineffable husbands weren't directly fighting to save the world, that threat still hung over the entire season. The Archangel Gabriel...
Well, what are you doing here?
I don't know, that's why I asked.
shows up at Aziraphale's door in the first episode bearing news of something terrible that he can't remember. And although we could say it's the full memory wipe that Heaven had been planning that he was referring to, it's also the literal apocalypse. Just as Every Day by Buddy Holly is both a reference to Gabriel and Beelzebub's love coming to fruition and also the apocalypse approaching. By working together to hide Gabriel, Aziraphale and Crowley did more than give the world a short reprieve. They've given it a fighting chance. If they hadn't caught Heaven's attention with their 25 Lazari miracle, if Gabriel had been caught and memory wiped, Aziraphale would not be the Supreme Archangel right now. It would likely be Michael or Uriel in heaven, led by the Metatron, versus an emotionally devastated Beelzebub in hell. So Gabriel didn't avert the next apocalypse by saying, nah, and running away with Beelzebub. Together, they only managed to postpone it, and only incidentally. They cared nothing for the earth and all its inhabitants, aside from the clothes. Gabriel wasn't sacrificing his position as Supreme Archangel, or Beelzebub their position as Grand Duke of Hell for anything other than each other, which again is sweet and romantic. Yet nothing has changed. Heaven is still a cold corporate nightmare intent on defeating Hell at any cost, and Hell is still a cruel feudalistic monarchy with the same goals. The voids they have left behind would be filled, and the march to war will continue. Our side can't solve these problems. I think, conflicted as he is, Aziraphale knows this. It's one reason he never takes the offer to run away. With a broken system, he can't in good conscience pick his own side and leave everyone else to their own devices. I don't know, despite constantly offering it, that Crowley would actually be able to run off either. He keeps thinking about it, even planning to do it, but he always comes back. Partly because he can't leave Aziraphale, but partly, I think, because he can't abandon everything as easily as he pretends. So if their own side isn't the answer, then what is? Can we take this concept of sides one tiny step further? In episode 5, we see a lovely Jane Austen-inspired ball. We're going to take a little Pride and Prejudice and historical dance detour here, but trust me, it'll make sense in the end. In Pride and Prejudice, Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth develop their relationship quite significantly during a series of 3 balls. It's through these dances, both the literal and the figurative, that they come to know each other better. What dance do we see in both Pride and Prejudice and Good Omens? Well, I'm no historical dance expert, but I think this is some version of a contredanse français. It has a very specific and recognizable set of symbolic characteristics. The dancers begin in 2 lines, 2 sides, if you will, facing their partners. They do not touch each other immediately. During the dance, they approach and retreat. They mirror each other. They touch hands, then switch sides. Again, they come together, and again, they step away. The couples all switch up, and then everyone is changing positions, standing where the other stood, until the couples finally come back together. For that one period of the dance, no one is in a fixed position. Everyone is continually moving. Where the dance began with 2 rigid sides, now the lines have become completely blurred. Just as in Pride and Prejudice, what we are seeing here is symbolic of something else much deeper going on under the surface, and it embodies this theme of learning to see things from another's perspective and coming together. The dance is beautiful in both Pride and Prejudice and Good Omens, representing joining in a kind of harmony and balance and abandoning sides. This is the same metaphorical dance that Crowley and Aziraphale have been doing around each other for their entire existence, only their dance is eternal, cosmic. This ballroom dance reflects their eternal dance. They face each other, they come together, then step away. They mirror each other, they touch. Then they change places and come together again so that each stands where the other began. And now they are about to take the next necessary step in this dance, the step away. Where it was Aziraphale who was the rock, the anchor, it is now Crowley who must stay. Where it was Crowley who was ever moving and changing, it is now Aziraphale who must go.
When heaven ends life here on earth, it'll be just as dead as if hell ended it.
Those with power, maybe God, though maybe it's always been the Metatron, I don't want to debate that here, and presumably Lucifer, have their own goals. They want to win the argument, win the bet, win the war. They don't care about the cost. Angels, demons, humans, goats, it's all the same to them. They don't care about any of it. At the end of Season 1, Crowley believes that the next big battle will be humanity against heaven and hell. Even though they stopped it once, the powers that be will just do it again and again and again. So how can they stop this cycle of us versus them? As we've seen with Gabriel and Beelzebub, choosing neither side and running away isn't the answer. Heaven and hell are both toxic. This is made explicitly clear in the Good Omens universe. But heaven and hell are constructs. The beings that inhabit them are not inherently toxic, quite the opposite. Angels and demons both have a certain childlike quality about them. From Muriel to Gabriel, from Eric to Shax, they usually obey the commands given them by their side, but even though they don't know it, all show the ability to learn, change, and grow. Shax becomes rather fond of Crowley, who shows his usual patience when teaching her little bits about the world and how it works.
Sarcasm, yes?
Yep.
And she looks to him for advice, even in the middle of a threat.
Listen. When there's no hot water and 2 yellow lights on the boiler, what is that?
Muriel takes to reading like a duckling takes to water. The Erics always volunteer information even when it gets them discorporated, and they even have a sense of humor. Beelzebub stops tormenting their underlings after they fall in love with Gabriel and have experienced kindness for the first time. Crowley, a demon, does moral things all the time. He commits self-sacrifice on multiple occasions. He sneaks into heaven and opens a file only a high-ranking angel should be able to open. Aziraphale, an angel, makes uninformed and immoral choices. He lies pretty regularly. He possesses someone, something only demons are supposed to be able to do. Angels and demons come from the same stock. They aren't inherently more or less good, more or less evil. They aren't inherently different. They aren't human, but they share this characteristic, that they are capable of making choices for both good or ill. They may have been told that they cannot choose. They may even believe it, but their actions say otherwise. They've been sorted into camps, told what they are, told how to behave. How do you feel when poor Eric bites the dust over and over? He's just a little guy. What'd he ever do to deserve that? The entire concept of heaven and hell in Good Omens is a top-down construct, a tool used for control. That's what the institutional problem is. Neither is made for the benefit of anyone, and while they exist, everyone will continue to suffer under them. At the beginning of this video, Crowley posed the question, angel, demon, heaven, hell, what's the point? And I would answer him, there isn't a point because there are no sides. It's an artificial construct put in place to enforce certain beliefs and behaviors. And there isn't an our side either. There is only everyone together, just as the dance shows us. I am reminded that in the title sequence, when Aziraphale and Crowley dance, they create something entirely new, their own little world. I think this represents a world where Aziraphale isn't afraid that his love for Crowley is wrong. A world where Crowley isn't afraid that he's unworthy of love. A world without heaven and hell there to judge them. A world without sides. Aziraphale and Crowley are the central characters in this eternal conflict for a reason. They balance each other. Where Crowley made the correct deduction that heaven and hell are both toxic, that is only halfway to the necessary conclusion. I think that Aziraphale will be the other half of that equation, but he can't arrive at that mental place he needs to be without Crowley, nor Crowley without him. Crowley doesn't dance. He's comfortable right where he is. Aziraphale must literally pull him out onto the dance floor. But once out there, when one takes a step in the dance, the other is needed to meet in the middle, change positions, and see what the other sees, help them each take the next step and the next. The only way to stop the eternal war between heaven and hell is to somehow tear down both, without destroying the angels and demons who inhabit them. And it's only because these two ineffable idiots have spent eons doing this dance, building this relationship against all odds, learning from each other, that they are somehow going to be able to pull off the seemingly impossible. One of my biggest takeaways from Ineffable Con is that nothing in this show is an accident. Everything in frame is intentional, purposeful, and there's more for us to discover. They all said so. Keep digging. Every panelist talked about the sheer detail of everything. So, why is there a sword and a skeleton framed between Aziraphale and Crowley in 1941? This sword goes right through their hands. Also, they're on their wrong sides in this frame. Shout out to Joe Madge for spotting this, which prompted me to look at more of the magic shop where I spotted this skeleton. Are there other places where we see foreshadowing of their breakup in season 2, or could it foreshadow something else, something worse in season 3? Have you heard of Every Frame Matters? It's a multi-artist collaboration organized by Dots with Brainrot and Tsutsuya, featuring 300 artists across the fandom that came together to create the most beautiful and amazing animation of the Kiss. I was absolutely blown away when I saw the finished animation. I've included a link in the description to the original project, the original Tumblr post showing the finished animation, and Tsutsuya's YouTube channel, which shows a slow version so you can see each animation. I encourage absolutely every Good Omens fan to check it out. Please make sure your sound is on when you do. We really have such an amazing fandom with so many talented artists. Our new Discord server is up and running. Currently, only patrons have access, and we're making sure it's all going to be ready for a solid launch. I'll post a channel announcement with the Discord information and open it to everyone on November 1st. Keep an eye out for that. Speaking of, I'd like to thank my new patrons this week. You're all helping to make all of this possible. And special thanks to Agent 277 for contributing to this video. If you'd like to join our growing Patreon community, the link is in the description. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, thanks for watching.